Drop out. Give her the money. Stay home and clean. The day my mother told me to drop out of college and hand over my life savings to my sister, I realised something painful. In my family, love had always come with conditions, and if you refused to pay the price, you were no longer family. I still remember my mother's exact words. "Drop out of school," she screamed. "Give your sister the money you saved and stay home where you belong." I was 20 years old, and the $42,000 I had saved was everything I had worked for. But to them, it was never mine. What they didn't know was that the girl they tried to break that day would walk away with nothing. And years later, they would run into me outside one of the biggest tech headquarters in Texas, where their laughter would suddenly turn into complete silence. Because the daughter they told to stay home and clean was about to show them exactly what they had thrown away. My name is Natalie Harper, and this is the story of the day I stopped being my family's backup plan. I grew up in Fort Worth, Texas, in a modest 2-story house where everything revolved around one person. My older sister. Her name was Brianna Harper. Brianna was 2 years older than me, and in my parents' eyes, she could do no wrong. If Brianna forgot something, it was my responsibility to remind her. If she failed a class, somehow I had distracted her. If she was upset, the whole house stopped functioning until she felt better. Meanwhile, my achievements were treated like routine maintenance. Something expected, not celebrated. If I brought home straight A's, my mother would nod and say, "Well, that's what you're supposed to do." But if Brianna passed a test she had been failing, my parents would order takeout and celebrate like she had won a national award. At first I thought this was normal. When you grow up inside something, you don't realise how strange it looks from the outside. You simply adapt. And so I adapted. I became the quiet one, the responsible one, the invisible one. By the time I turned 18, I had one goal that kept me moving forward. I wanted to become a software engineer, not because it sounded impressive, but because computers made sense to me in a way people often didn't. Code was honest. If something broke, you fixed it. There were rules, logic, fairness, things my home life rarely offered. But college was expensive. My parents had already made it clear they had no intention of helping me. As according to my mother, their priority was helping Brianna get established first. So I made a decision. If no one was going to help me, I would help myself. From the moment I turned 18, I worked constantly. Morning shifts at a grocery store, weekend tutoring for high school students, late-night freelance data entry. I lived like every dollar mattered, because it did. While other students went to parties, I was calculating grocery budgets. While friends took vacations, I was adding small deposits to my savings account. Slowly, painfully, steadily. The numbers grew. 10,000, 15,000, 20,000. By the time I was 20, my savings had reached $42,000. To anyone else, it might have looked like a modest amount. To me, it represented years of sacrifice. Years of believing in a future no one else believed in. And that was the moment everything went wrong. The conversation that changed everything. My parents discovered my savings during a casual dinner conversation. My father, Richard Harper, leaned back in his chair and whistled. $42,000, he said. That's impressive. For a moment, I thought he might actually be proud. Then he added something that made my stomach tighten. Brianna's apartment rent downtown is ridiculous. My mother, Diana Harper, immediately nodded. She deserves a place closer to the city. My heart began to race. This money is for tuition, I said carefully. Brianna didn't even look up from her phone. It's not like you need all of it, she muttered. I stared at her. What do you mean? She shrugged. "You're the smart one. What, you'll figure something out?" Then my mother said the words that changed everything. "Natalie," she said firmly, "you should give the money to your sister." The room went completely silent. I waited for someone to laugh, for someone to say they were joking. No one did. My father folded his arms. "Brianna needs stability right now." I felt my throat tighten. "I worked for that money," I said. My mother's expression hardened instantly. "And Brianna is your sister. That doesn't mean she's entitled to my college fund." Then my mother slammed her hand on the table. The sound echoed through the kitchen. "If you refuse," she shouted, "then forget college." Her voice rose into a full scream. "Drop out of school, give your sister the money, and stay home where you belong." For a moment, the world went completely quiet. Not outside, but inside my head. Something small and fragile inside me finally broke. I didn't argue. I didn't cry. I simply stood up from the table. My sister laughed. "Where are you going?" I walked to my room and grabbed my backpack. Inside it, I placed my birth certificate, my passport, copies of my bank documents, my laptop. When I returned to the hallway, my parents were still in the kitchen. My mother called after me. "You'll come back," my father added calmly. "You always do." But this time, they were wrong. I walked out the front door and didn't look back. Starting over from nothing. The first place I could afford was a tiny studio apartment above a laundromat. The ceiling leaked. The walls were thin enough to hear arguments downstairs. The air conditioning barely worked. But for the first time in my life, the space belonged entirely to me. I worked harder than ever. Double shifts. Online classes when I couldn't afford full-time tuition. I ate cheap noodles and slept 4 hours a night. Some days I wondered if my parents had been right. Maybe I had made a mistake. Maybe I had been selfish. Then I remembered the way my mother looked at me when she said, "Stay home and clean." And that memory kept me moving forward. 2 years passed faster than I expected. Slowly, my life began to change. I finished my degree, graduated near the top of my class, and eventually, I received a job offer from one of the fastest-growing tech companies in Texas, Hartwell Systems. The starting salary was more money than I had ever imagined earning. For the first time in my life, I felt secure, not rich, not powerful, just safe. One Monday morning, I stepped out of a rideshare in downtown Fort Worth. The glass tower of Hartwell Systems headquarters rose above the street like a mirror reflecting the morning sun. I adjusted my blazer and walked toward the entrance. That was when I heard a familiar laugh. I turned and froze. Across the street stood my parents and Brianna. They hadn't seen me yet. They were laughing about something. Then Brianna looked up. Her expression changed instantly. "Natalie," she blurted. My mother turned. Her eyes scanned me up and down. Then she smirked. "Interviewing here?" she asked sweetly. "The cleaning entrance is around the back." My father chuckled. For a brief moment, I said nothing. Then I clipped my employee badge onto my blazer. The words were clearly visible. "Software engineer, Natalie Harper." Their laughter stopped immediately. The silence. My father blinked. Brianna's mouth fell open, and my mother's smile froze in place. "You work here?" she asked. "Yes." "How long?" my father demanded. "Almost a year." Then my mother asked the question that revealed everything. "So what do you make?" Not, "How are you?" Not, "We're proud of you." Just numbers. I took a slow breath. Enough to build my own life. Then my father lowered his voice. "We're actually here because Brianna found an apartment nearby." And there it was again. The same expectation. the same entitlement. My sister crossed her arms. "You can help now." I looked at all three of them, and for the first time in my life, I saw them clearly. Not as my family, but as people who only valued me when they needed something. My phone buzzed, a meeting reminder. I glanced at the building entrance, then back at them. My mother suddenly softened her voice. "We can start over." But I knew the truth. They didn't want a relationship. They wanted access. "I hope you find the apartment you're looking for," I said calmly. Then I turned toward the glass doors. Behind me, Brianna called out, "You're really not going to help your own sister?" I paused, but I didn't turn around. "No," I said quietly. "I'm finally helping myself." And with that, I walked inside, leaving the past exactly where it belonged, outside. As I walked into the lobby of Hartwell Systems that day, something inside me felt different. Not because of the job, not because of the salary, but because for the first time in my life, I realised something powerful. I didn't need my family's approval anymore. For years, I believed that if I worked hard enough, if I sacrificed enough, and if I proved myself enough, they would finally see my worth. But the truth is something many people learn too late. Some people only value you when you are useful to them. And when you stop being useful, they suddenly remember all the reasons you are selfish. That day outside the building, my parents didn't see their daughter. They saw an opportunity. But something had changed. I had spent 2 years building a life that no one could take from me. A life based on effort, discipline, and self-respect. And standing there in that moment, watching their expressions shift from laughter to shock, I finally understood something my younger self never did. Walking away was never the loss. It was the beginning. I am Natalie Harper. 2 years earlier, I left that house with nothing but a backpack and a decision. A decision to choose my future over someone else's expectations. And standing in that glass lobby, surrounded by the quiet hum of a life I had built myself, I realised something simple. I wasn't the girl they told to stay home and clean anymore. I was the woman who proved that believing in yourself can be more powerful than anyone else's doubt. And sometimes, the best revenge isn't proving people wrong. It's simply living a life where their approval is no longer required. Life lessons. From this story, 1. Not everyone who shares your blood shares your values. Family should support your dreams, not demand that you sacrifice them. If someone constantly asks you to shrink so others can grow, that's not love, that's control. 2. Protect the future you worked hard to build. Natalie didn't save that money overnight. It took years of sacrifice, or discipline, and belief in herself. And sometimes protecting your future means saying no to the people who expect the most from you. 3. The people who laugh at your struggle may be the same ones shocked by your success. When Natalie walked away, her family believed she would fail, but the very independence they mocked became the foundation of her success. 4. Walking away is sometimes the strongest decision you can make. Many people stay in toxic environments because they fear starting over. But the truth is, peace often begins the moment you leave what no longer respects you. If this story resonated with you in any way, take a moment to think about this. Have you ever had to walk away from someone who expected you to sacrifice your future for them? If so, share your experience in the comments. Your story might inspire someone else who is struggling to make that same decision. And if you enjoy powerful, real-life inspired stories about resilience, betrayal, and unexpected success, make sure to like this video and subscribe for more stories that remind us all of one important truth. Sometimes the people who doubt you the most end up watching your success from the outside.